Hello to all of the subscribers of the Global Energy Association. This is the continuation of our chats with the newly appointed members of our Trustees Committee. And today we're having as our guest, as our member, I'd say, Peter Uyldining, who's joining us from Brussels. Peter, these days, how should I describe you? Are you British? Are you European? Who are you?
Well, I still have my British passport, of course, but I also have my Belgian identity card. I remain a British citizen.
Good. Peter is, of course, the author, one of the claimed authors, not a self-proclaimed author of the word Brexit. So he knows what he's talking about when he says Europe, and that's a little strip of water called the English Channel, which still divides the UK from Europe, or vice versa. I don't know. Peter, seriously talking. When Britain left the EU, suddenly we see a disappearance of the nuclear power lobby in the EU, because Britain is living through a renaissance as far as the nuclear energy is concerned. You still have France and you still have Belgium, but Germany, obviously and famously, is now against the nuclear power. So when we talk about a European view of where energy should be going, is there a consensus?
No. Whilst there is a united or a unified energy policy for Europe, it, of course, as you've just indicated, is subject to national decision-making as to its specificity. Revelations about divisions are familiar to you. We can only mention the Nord Stream 2 pipeline as one. Plus, there are also other examples, such as energy deals between China and Balkan countries, which are causing litigation at the moment. So the answer to your question is no. Is there likely to be? I can only see a power political dimension emerging, which will, instead of guiding energy policy by the necessities of the member states, next year, when we have a new German chancellor and a new French president, we could see some power politics developing. But there is no talk of that now, as you can imagine. The policy discussion has been silent because of Brexit, of course, but also because of the COVID problem, and others too, including the United States. So no, is there any chance of one? I doubt it, but we'll have to wait until next year for that.
The reason I'm asking is, of course, that we have 3 nominations in the process. That's conventional energy, non-conventional energy, and new applications. And I'm in a peculiar position, because on the one hand, I've been talking to, say, a new member of our Committee of Trustees, Mr. Teller from Africa, with whom we discussed things, and he's actually inclined towards the idea that if you want to have a guaranteed flow of energy, you should not dismiss conventional energy. But at the same time, when we promote our price in the European environment, a lot of people would say, now, what conventional energy are you talking about? We should be talking about new applications than non-conventional, or at least a CO2-free energy, which is nuclear, but which is not readily accepted by Europe. So I just wanted to place that debate there so that our subscribers understand what we're talking about here. Yes?
One point.
What?
I see this discussion as focusing on the Global Energy Prize and the association. And as we discussed in December, there is a demand for innovative solutions. And of course, the Global Energy Prize is centered on innovative solutions. So consequently, I return to my view that with or without an energy policy or united energy policy or a strong energy policy, then the Global Energy Prize is well placed to lobby or enable lobbying for specific types of energy solutions. I think where there is a gray area, where there is policy confusion, it is there that I believe we, the Global Energy Prize, can offer some alternative concepts in an interesting way. So I don't mind that there isn't a major energy initiative, because I think that gives us the opportunity to establish new energy dialogues wherever we are.
In fact, when you look at the horizon of the Global Energy Association, say at our annual report, there is an interesting solution there, offered, by the way, by British scientists, that yes, CO2 affects global warming, and only those who are interested in conspiracy theories say otherwise. So you must fight CO2, but you can still use natural gas and oil and even coal by catching the CO2, which is produced during the process of burning, and say pumping it into the underground shallow holes, which are a consequence of oil exploration. It's conceivable, but yet when you say something like that, a lot of people, especially in Europe, say, no, we don't want to have any fossil fuels any longer. Why is that? Is there a compromise?
Well, there's a dominant narrative, which is that CO2 emissions must be reduced within a specific time frame. Regulations have been imposed on various industries, including the automobile industry, to achieve CO2 emission reduction. That is a campaign narrative. It is just reduce CO2 emissions by getting rid of fossil fuels. However, we must realize that the governments of these states must achieve both objectives. And I believe that states would seek to achieve the objective of CO2 emissions, which are obviously emissions reductions, which are obviously in the Copenhagen Agreement, in national legislation, as well as European legislation. But I see that as an opportunity, because where the Global Energy Prize sits is to go to states and the scientists of those states and say, look, we agree with your objective, but here is a way of achieving that objective, which is simpler and smoother, which does involve the continued use of fossil fuels. And the solutions that you have just presented are plainly solutions which, if the Global Energy Prize is awarded to a scientist that has, as you intimate, produced this kind of solution or initiative, then we promote them. I think the thing is the Global Energy Prize is a kind of shop window for solutions. And that is its credit, to its credit. So that is my answer. I think that, yes, you're right. It is because of the campaign narrative we have, Greta Thunberg, etc. But it doesn't reflect reality on the ground. And that needs to be, that is our position, our opportunity, our platform, if you like, to provide innovative solutions.
Well, that's the reason why we are now actively working with the United Nations and hopefully joining the COP debates in Glasgow by the end of the year,
Yes.
to rightly so, to discuss things like that. I don't want to torture everyone around here with the endless conversation, but I should stress that both you and I have lived for many years in the south of this planet, or at least have traveled there extensively. We both speak Spanish and we know the region. And there's another angle to that debate. It's that, of course, everyone wants to live in Europe because Europe is clean. And now that Europe is going to be tax CO2 emissions elsewhere, people say, oh, how nice the Europeans are. At the same time, the problem is that by using more renewable energy, which as of today produces electricity which is 2 or even 3 times higher, I mean, more expensive. What the European Union does is that it's cleaning its own environment, making the prices higher in the European Union. It's a separate question whether the consumer would accept that. but saying at the same time to the developing world that in order that we, the Europeans, live cleanly, you must pay extra, either by paying an additional tax on what you produce in the developing world, or by applying the same renewable technologies in the developing world, which would mean double or triple prices for electricity. Peter, I may sound naive, but is this fair?
Well, I put it in the concept of power politics here. The European Union is noted for something that has been called the Brussels effect, the soft power of regulatory change. Europe also sees itself as an environmental union. It's a polity in search of a project, if you like. And therefore, it has sought to impose its power through regulatory authority on these other countries. Is it fair? Well, I think the way of looking at it is that if the emissions around the world are greater in countries like China and others, then how does the community, the COP community, impose its will? And it's the only way to do that, I fear, is to impose restrictions and potential price increases on those countries that are polluting. Whether it's right or wrong is not relevant to the political imperative that the European Union sees itself as a role and which it performs. So yeah, it doesn't seem unfair, but life is not fair. Global politics is not fair. And as we saw, just as a little aside, in the Brexit trade negotiations between the EU and the UK, the palpable power difference between these two parties was clear to all. So I have to accept rail politics, Sergei, as you accept it too.
Well, to what I would say that our solution is that the scientists involved in the Global Energy Price Association work produce more and more solutions, produce more and more suggestions, ideas as to how you can lower the costs of renewables and how you make the conventional energy cleaner. And that's, the reason why I, now more than a year ago, eagerly accepted the offer by the founders of the association to head it, and why I'm grateful to you and some of your colleagues who have accepted my offer to join the trustees committee. So I'm looking forward to working more and more with you. The only thing that I can't really resolve at this time is how we're going to work offline in the nearest future. Because, well, statistically, we're very proud of the results achieved in this last year, as far as online viewership is concerned. So the growth is by 600%. But it is, by the way, you should know that. Let me humbly inform you, my dear member of the Trustees Committee. But we really face a problem as to how we gather people. We'll see. We'll see. How can you travel? Can you now travel between Brussels and London at least?
Yes, only for essential reasons and with the possession of a COVID test.
Well, we'll see what happens by midsummer when we typically have the International Committee get together, but we'll see. Anyway, Peter Uyltingen, thank you so much for joining us, and let's keep in touch and let's work together.
Thank you very much, Sergei, for the invitation, and thank you to all at the Global Energy Prize, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the flesh when we can.
When you can touch yourself. Thank you.